Yeah, hello and welcome back to the Grassy Pastures Podcast with myself, Matt. I'm joined by Harry once again, and we just talk through all things sort of PUBG, gaming, and some IRL stuff as well. So, first of all, welcome back. How are you doing? You had a good week?
Yeah, it's not been too bad. It's been relatively busy with work and things. The weekend was pretty chilled, so that was quite nice. But yeah, nothing majorly exciting happening this week, really. How about you? Anything exciting?
No, same to be honest. I've thought I'd be playing some PUBG all week, but I haven't really done anything. I've literally just been playing FIFA, sweating that. I think everyone's either sweating that or COD at the moment, aren't they? So
yeah, of course.
And the new one's out tomorrow. So
yeah.
Tomorrow,
no, new one's out today. Today. Literally, yeah, about an hour ago it came out.
Oh.
So we're recording this on Wednesday, of course. So new one's out. People are playing it. I've seen a little bit of the gameplay.
PUBG's dead.
Very similar to the last COD with a few UI updates. Which, they're not going to change something that was relatively successful. But yeah, I think Warzone we kind of spoke about this last week, anyways. So we won't go into.
It's just going to be another COD episode, isn't it?
It's going to be another COD episode. But I think watching Warzone and things like that, I feel like it's a lot more like run and gun than it is strategy. Whereas when it comes to PUBG, especially when it comes to comps, there's a lot of strategy that goes into it.
I think it depends what level you're talking about, because like I have like that run and gun approach in PUBG.
Yeah, of course. I just mean like
works out.
When it comes to potentially, looking at the comp scene and people going, I'm going to go and try and look at Warzone. I think there's always going to be something that's missing if you like PUBG comp. I think because you've got that strategy, you've kind of got that, bunker down, rotate around compounds. You don't really have that. It feels very compact and like tight, and it's all about those close fights and things. It's similar to Apex, really. Apex is pretty much you just run through as many people as you can and get kills. Same sort of thing. Whereas PUBG is a lot slower. So I think generally. People,
have you ever watched Apex competitive? Because that is sweaty, seriously sweaty.
I haven't really watched too much.
It's so good. You need to watch it because it's literally like everyone's camped in buildings. It's the same as PUBG. Every compound, everyone's holding. There's no one in the open because you just get destroyed. But yes, I mean, we could talk about this for ages. What we should probably talk about is everything we said we would talk about last week and got distracted. So
yeah, literally.
What we'll do, I'll say we just talk about what we've got on the list here. First thing, CES. We said obviously some thank yous to everyone last time, but I just wanted to talk about, because I know we've spoke about this before, but I don't know if it really came across in the games. I know some people feel in it, but that I just want to touch on the finals first of all, maybe work our way backwards. But that gap, the mentality of the players between week 1 and week 2, when you had the PCL right in the middle, if you remember.
Yeah.
We literally had, was it Monday, Wednesday? Then PCL was all weekend, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think, we had
straight back into the final. So they'd literally gone from 20 grand to, a grand prize to be won, and the teams just looked like they couldn't be bothered, and we can't blame them. I'm not having a go at anyone.
I mean, we literally we came off of day 1 and we kind of chatted and we were like, that was really weird gameplay. It was not obviously not knocking Dig. We said how well they did last week and they still played very well, but it was it was like the top teams that have really been like properly fully focused on that £20,000 prize for PCL. None of them really did that well at all in whatever, and the rotates were weird. The games were playing out really weird. It was pretty much like everyone was just kind of was playing scrims almost. It wasn't as intense as our events has been before, especially when it comes to a final. So we definitely did see the effect, and I think we kind of went away from it and we're like, you know what, it doesn't really matter. Like, obviously we planned the event, PCL came up afterwards. It was great that we could still run both events. We didn't want to delay our event. We were kind of already in the middle of it, and as many people know, with our events we don't really change dates and things once they've been put in place, unless of course if PCL had clashed, we'd have of course rearranged. It's great to see a big event like that come into the scene. You don't want to fight it. You don't want to you know, it's only going to hinder our event. I'm like, if I was playing our event, even I would say, no, you know what? I've got a chance of winning, you know, 10k rather than a few £100. You know, it is a big difference. Like you're gonna give yourself that opportunity. Like you're gonna quit out, especially when it was a free entry event for ours as well. So yeah, you know, it kind of did definitely come into factor. I think the fact that everyone was just burnt out. I think that weekend, you know, you obviously had K7 who already had 10k in their pocket, weren't really too worried about how they did in week 2, and it showed. You know, they did okay, but they didn't get into the top 3 in terms of money for week 2, which is where the most of the money were. But they still managed to hold enough points from their week 1 performance, which was huge. They did so well in week 1 that it didn't really matter anyway. And I think everyone was kind of looking at, you know, I think because you had the groups, didn't you, the week just before the first week. So I think everyone had kind of been doing that and then focused in that one as a practice for anyone that had qualified for the finals of PCL.
That's right, yeah.
Using week 1 as kind of a bit of a practice. K7 obviously, you know, really playing well there and carried that across to PCL. But yeah, I think for the most part, although teams did play well, there were definitely a lot more like lackluster plays, I think, and people less worried about it all, I think.
Yeah, I think it reminded me of, you know, when occasionally we do those scrims, which are like just before CCS, CCS2, where you go like, right, anyone who's qualified can play. But when you put those up, 99% of the time, the teams it's not those teams who are usually winning the money. You know, even like PCL, we saw 8 teams win. Go down to, was it RMV in 8th? I think.
In which one?
In PCL, sorry.
PCL, I'm pretty sure RMV got 8th place, yeah.
Yeah, but like, so it's one of those where you had like a couple of teams, you know, when you see these scrims and it's those kind of middle of the pack teams like Dig, and you know, results will say like that's a fair, you know, a fair thing to say about them.
Yeah,
who,
I think
like, really do well.
Based on recent performance, they've definitely sort of, you know, they've had moments, but they've not really sort of pushed themselves quite up into that, you know, consistent top 3 bracket that we've seen from. You know, some of these teams, and you know, RMV, they finished in 8th. They managed to come second in week 2 of CCS. Basically on that last game, I think they jumped 7 places in that final game, being able to win that, which is obviously a huge jump. And I think it was so close going into that final game that we haven't really seen a game as close as that for a while. Going into a final game, I think that's just because, you know, those top teams weren't dominating, which meant they were kind of in the middle of the pack. And they're the teams that we know are capable of having massive games. So it got to the final game and we were seeing, you know, so many teams up, and you still had, you had obviously RMV managed to win it. There was someone else snaking it out. I think, I can't remember who it was, but I think even they had the, was it Walshy snaking it out that was trying to get,
sounds like it, maybe. I can't remember.
I think if they'd won, I think they suddenly they would have got themselves, a good
it was,
well.
I know what you mean. Yeah,
someone like that up in the north.
Water treatment, yeah.
Yeah,
it was. I think.
Yeah, I think it might. Yeah, I think it might have been. Hang on, I'm just trying to look at week 2 and see who else jumped. Oh no, Aguita were up in the like the barrels.
Aguita won the final game, didn't they?
No, I think RMV won it, didn't they? Because Zebo, we commented on the fact he actually had some kills that game.
Oh.
I think they won it from that point, and Aguita were trying to do well. Just looking at who's actually jumped up, TSS jumped up 1 place. Torch got a few points. I think they were the ones that were over the road. On the other bunker that up against RMV, you had Kyomi, I think, snaking around.
I'm thinking of the wrong game. I've just realised I'm thinking of the wrong game. I'm thinking of the Miramar game. Yeah, we did ended with Erangel, didn't we?
Erangel, yeah. But anyway, you know, CCS, not the best level of play I think we've seen from a lot of teams. You know, not taking anything away from Dig, because they did play very well. And we kind of said after day 1, are they going to be able to hold on to their lead, because they kind of did get a little bit lucky with a couple of the zones in day 1. But day 2, they didn't really get any zones at all, and yet they were still able to, you know, to hold on to that lead, still have big games, and you know, really, really did play well, and finished first overall, and obviously got themselves a decent prize. So that's always great to see, and I think hopefully next event there won't be two big events next to each other, as we kind of look to see what we're going to plan to do next. But yeah, PCL maybe hindered the event a little bit, but it still went really well, and I think the other stages of the event were still very successful and enjoyable. I
feel like leading up to it was certainly a lot more exciting. That there was more exciting stuff going on. Although the Dig sort of storyline was, of course, very exciting. If you follow that sort of stuff, if you get in as we do, if there's a storyline, I'll watch any PUBG if there's a storyline, underdogs or whatever. But I think there was obviously a little bit of confusion with some of the teams with the first stage, about how many days they'd play. I think mainly because previously they, with CCS they did 2 days. I think we had a few teams that were kind of thinking that they were doing all 3 days of the qualifiers. Whereas we kind of when coming up with the format, we're kind of juggling what we wanted to do, and the reason why we only did 1 day and then 2 days is generally because it's like, well, okay, if you're trying to find the best teams and you've got 32 teams and you're trying to get top half, realistically, you don't want to put it down to 1 day. You want to be able to put it down to, 2. So there's at least 8 games. If you have a couple of bad games, you're not really struggling to be able to qualify into that top 8, especially when we're kind of looking at, you go into Super Week. That's like a big a big part of the event. You join the invited teams. We want the best teams in that round. So the round before had to be slightly longer and make sure it did get those better teams in, rather than a couple that got a little bit lucky on a couple of games that pushed themselves up in there. But the problem was we didn't want, because those teams aren't used to playing lots, and we kind of want to encourage a lot of teams to sign up. We kind of went, okay, well, do teams really want to be playing 4 days of qualifiers back to back to back in one week? Because we're doing, we don't want to do a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because generally you get a different group of people playing over the weekend than you do in the week. So it works better to have the same, it works better to either do Monday to Thursday or Friday to Sunday generally, which is obviously what PCL did. They did the weekend. We decided to do the week. That's just what we've always done. But the Tuesday was either, okay, we add another day and have 4 days back to back, or we have a rest day where we can kind of make sure we've got all the teams sorted going into the next day, which is obviously what we went for. But I think from a playing point of view, and making sure the teams got enough game time, I think it would have been better to have had 2 days for the first round at least. And then maybe look at after that. The thing is, I didn't want to then sacrifice a day for the second round. So it's kind of one of those things that you kind of just got to look at it and go, what's best for the teams, and what's going to encourage the most amount of players to want to participate. Are they going to look at that and go, that's a really long qualification, or are they going to go, actually, there's not enough qualification? Yeah, I think that was the beauty in having the invited teams, because obviously where we always try and cater for, every, across the board for everyone.
Yeah.
One thing's obviously the top teams don't want to do is go through weeks and weeks of qualification to then, because, value for money for a team that didn't qualify is a lot different than value for money for, like K7, who are, pretty much guaranteed to get some money out of it, because, for them, they had to play 4 days. 4 days?
They played 2 days. They played 6 days total, but 4 of those had money on the line. Two of them were qualifying days, which is obviously, when you're looking at £1,000 tournament and you've got to play 6 days, that's pretty good value for a team like that. Whereas you look at someone, that's likely to only qualify in the first, or maybe only make top 32 and not make it into Super Week. It's a big event that people want to get involved in. We put a lot of time into doing, the sort of graphics, doing like getting casters on board, trying to do all of that stuff. I know, there were a few hindrances with getting casters this time. I don't know, that's another thing we can kind of discuss a bit later. But it's just been, there just hasn't really been much of a desire for people to get into that. But you want to give the teams a chance to play in these big events with the top teams wherever possible, and it's kind of like, the more you cater for those, the less the top teams are happy. But then, if you just cater to the top teams, no one else wants to sign up because, you're only catering to them. So I really like the way the format worked. I think it was good all round. I think the problem was where we'd just come off the back of CCS, which obviously has a very exciting stage in the winner chicken dinner format for viewers and also for teams that are kind of maybe not one of the top teams that feel like they've got a chance pretty much to the last game of picking up a game, and you've got new teams coming in and rotating out, and it's all very exciting in terms of the organization and teams kind of going, oh, I wonder who's going to be able to qualify. If you're K7 or another, I know we keep saying K7, but obviously they have been so dominant recently. If you're K7 and you're qualifying on day one, you are still engaged in that event because you want to know who's joining you, and the games are still exciting. You're looking at other teams that are at your level or around your level and going, oh, I wonder if they're going to be able to make it into the finals. But when you look at the format we had, it didn't have that really exciting stage of. It didn't have a stage that enticed of teams that were already qualified to want to watch the games with anticipation. It was kind of just like, oh, well, we can watch the games and see who's going to join us, but there's 8 teams that are going to join us, and we've already know 8 that are the top 8 in our eyes, so does it really matter who else is there?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the beauty of that the weekly survival stage, like the winner chicken dinner, because we've touched on this before, but like basically every 31 teams, all 31 teams have a vested interest in that, whether they've already qualified, whether they're in it, or whether they're coming into it. They're all sort of watching it, which is why if you look at our stream numbers, those are obviously the weeks which do well. I think at the same time with CES, it's not as if we rushed it, but we kind of had to get it out because we've got some other things that we want to try and do. And someone came to us and said, I want to give you some money to sponsor this event. So we kind of felt obliged to kind of get it out. I know, we'd been working on it a while, but I think to go from sort of CCS2 to more of that league format. I know it wasn't, but you know what I mean? I think people saw that and it's not as exciting as CCS2.
Yeah, and I think, we obviously put the poll up afterwards, which event format did everyone choose, and it was overwhelming in terms of, in favour of CCS, even from some of those top teams. And we kind of thought, as one of the top teams, a lot of the comments we'd had from CCS was the finals aren't as good as they could be because it's not even going through. And I think that we kind of tried to fit a format that would make the finals as good as it could be, especially when it was a free-to-enter event with forgetting PCL, still a decent-sized prize pool, especially for a free event. CCS, obviously PCL came along and that was made our prize pool look a lot smaller, but had that not have been the case, it would have been a decent prize pool for people to try and win. Especially when you look at week 2, coming across after winning 8 games, you could win £250. That's a decent 2-day prize. To what you're getting. You're not really getting that at all unless you're doing like a £25 paid entry, which for a 2-day event rarely feels at the moment. So it was really good value for money, and it worked really well, and it kind of filtered out it made sure the finals were the best it could possibly be, and they were exciting, and the level of quality was there, but the problem was the teams of that level weren't there, as we said, they kind of checked out a little bit because of PCL, and I think maybe had they been there, it might have been a little bit more competitive, but I think people... It's at the stage now where people are so used to playing these 3 days, 4 days, or leagues or whatever, where it is all about being consistent. Having that CCS format where it just completely changes things up. It's a bit different. It's something fun still, and all the teams are engaged in it. And we've filled it twice now. The first time we filled in 5 days, I think we sold it out, and that was at a time when very few paids were filling. And we filled a league with 32 teams for £20 entry. We didn't think we put it up a month early because we didn't think we'd do it. And there we go, 5 days later, it's full. With teams then going, oh, I didn't realise it was going to fill so quick. Can we be on the reserve for payment list? Teams really wanting to try and make sure they got that spot if it came available. Same thing kind of happened with the second one. We kind of said, okay, if you qualify, you can then pay the round, but we'll do 3 open qualifiers. We'll give 4 free spaces, etc. Or I think 27 out of those 28 teams paid for their spot because they they wanted to participate in it, and it wasn't necessarily teams that would normally play a paid. There were a few teams that I've never seen in paid events or our events, and they were paying.
Yeah, plus we had sort of 7-8 teams who were literally queued at the door wanting to pay for that as well.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So we obviously said, there's going to be one space. We don't want to, favourite anyone. We don't want to do it based on results because it depends on what group you're in, etc., etc. It should be down to random because it is that final spot essentially in the rank decision. It doesn't really matter which team gets it based on quality. And obviously did the random pick, which we had to do twice because I left a team out. But it filled and people were really eager to play in it. And I think we kind of saw that and were like, okay, that's great, but we don't want to just do the same format over and over again and make everyone get fed up of that one, which is obviously why we then did the showdown. And as you said, it wasn't necessarily rushed, but I think the actual final execution, getting it out, making sure we did it in the time frame that we wanted, because we were waiting on other sponsorship as well. And we finally got, that's not going to happen. And we're like, okay, what are we going to do? We've got this money here that we can use. Let's use that. And obviously the event wasn't quite the same as what we expected it to be. But I think the event was still successful. And we'll definitely look at, changing the formats up, maybe bring that in with a slight few tweaks going into the middle of next year. But CCS is definitely, I think, going to be our next event. Looking into 2023.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to bring it back, as our, first event next year. We can talk about that in a different episode, to be fair. But have that as the main one. Because we've been trying to set up some other things at the moment, try and do some other things on Discord, which I can't really talk about yet. But as much as the players aren't there to fill lobbies and stuff, it's the admins aren't there to fill lobbies. And that's, I'm not criticizing anyone because everyone has their own life, everyone plays different games, but it certainly feels, we mentioned it last week that people are just, not enjoying PUBG as much anymore. And I think it is going to be that phase, like we saw the last few years when those new games come out, you've got 2 CODs coming out, got all different sorts of things that are taking people's attention away. But certainly going into next year, we'll have to do that. But I think we need to talk about PCL as well, because we mentioned obviously the prize pool, but apart from that, the rest of it was an absolute shit show, to be honest.
Yeah, and I'm definitely. They're definitely. I'm not fully supportive of how PCL was ran and how it was all done. Just saying that first, I do understand where some of the problems probably came about, and I don't think that it's okay. So it's PCL and Hyperlux obviously coming together for the first time. It's a game that Hyperlux haven't done before. Clearly, it was to do with their admin staff and everything like that. So it's a game that they haven't been involved in before. It felt like it sort of came about very quickly in terms of, okay, we got this event, it's signing up, closes next week, we're going to start running the event. It's done. It was all done within 3 weeks of the announcement to the end of the event. It was very quick.
Yeah.
So I understand there's going to be problems, but I think it's the way the problems were handled and communicated that was the main issue.
Yeah, we'll go back a couple of months before. Obviously, Bing had been, so quiet with everything on Twitter and everything after the LAN.
Yeah,
and he obviously didn't handle that well at all in communication with everyone, which has always seemed to be the problem with PCOs, the communication and sort of forward-facing admins. You can never seem to get a straight answer. It doesn't matter kind of what you want to know. You're always sort of redirected or pushed elsewhere, or just almost, a lot of people say, you're made to feel like you're not relevant. You're not, they have no respect for you, which is sort of where it starts. And then, obviously Bing does talk a big game, and, fair play to him. He does put on big events, and he, secures his funding, does well in that respect. But you knew something was coming after, he put that apology out. You knew something was coming up, but then, 20K massive, and then instantly you're straight into sign up. So no build up at all. And the thing that got me, I mean, PCL has never had, certainly on the EU side, has never had massive groups and massive lobbies. It's always been, quick, through the group stage as quick as you can, almost, get through that, get into the finals, win your money, which is fair enough because, it is value for money, as, we said. But I just feel like 20 grand. And there was only, I don't think there was even 24 teams in it in the end, was there?
There were 32 signed up, but I mean, even that just was very last minute. And you got to think, look, it's a £20,000 prize pool that we've never seen on PUBG console ever. Like nothing even close to that. I mean, even NA had only seen 10k at max, and that was when they got backing from PUBG and they had a big event and everything. And that was like, EU were kind of, when's our turn? We had obviously the TPP event, which the Console Carnage League or whatever that was, which didn't have monetary behind it, like monetary prizes. It was kind of like TVs and controllers from Scuff and all that sort of stuff, which is, it still was a nice... I mean, again, that event could have also been handled differently, but again, we could
do a whole episode on that.
We could do a whole episode on that one, but PCL...
do you remember the lobbies when you had to just... It was like ESL, wasn't it? When you had to like just sign up at 6 o'clock, register.
The check-in system was shocking, and it was, it was just handled badly, and it was the first big event that PUBG had done, and I just think they just didn't expect it to be that popular. But the problem is they then never rectified it by having another event, knowing the popularity. It was just like, okay, we've tried that. There was a lot of toxicity and stuff because teams were obviously naturally frustrated, and then nothing else came of it, and it was kind of like, well, okay, well that was a bit of a weird event. But yeah, going back to PCL, so obviously, there's never been anything that scale. And I just think that when you've got something that big, there needs to be some sort of build up, or there needs to be some sort of, I know they didn't necessarily have the support from PUBG, especially on the EU side. But, there's definitely problems with, the fact they don't advertise their stuff. They assume that they're the best, and that teams are going to be coming and flocking to them all the time, which, we, as our events, we kind of feel like we can do that, but we still put out, a good couple of weeks for signups. We still put out a lot of, stuff on Twitter and stuff about it. We go through the Discords. We've got admins and stuff in different communities that can, help promote our events to make sure that they still fill. But I mean, we could probably put up a league tomorrow with a prize entry, and probably, I'm 95% certain it will fill with 32 teams.
Oh, yeah.
Because, people know what they get from our events. They know they fill, which also helps to do it. But PCL, I mean, they've had two big events, right? They had... Oh, no, didn't they have a 10K? No, it was like 4K, wasn't it? They did for EU. I think the last PCL we had.
I don't think it was that. So yeah,
it was around that. I can't remember.
Yeah.
The one that VE won. But anyway, they had this prize pool. I think it was $6,000. I think it was about €4,000 or something along that. But it was still a decent prize pool and still bigger than what we've had, from anywhere else EU, even with paid entry. And it was pretty much free. I think it was like €10 or €15 entry, which is not a lot at all. I mean, you're literally looking at like, a few euros a person. And even that struggled to fill. And that was literally at the same time, or that was just after that was when we were doing CCS.
Yeah, and they gave spots away, didn't they?
They had to give free spots away and whatever, and they couldn't fill it. And that was only for 24 teams as well. That wasn't even for 32.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was us sitting, with a fraction of that prize pool with 32 teams already paid with £20 entry. So it's a bigger entry. It was, because we supplied more value for money and we made it a bigger event, and they didn't. And I feel like they've done exactly the same with this one. Like, yeah, okay, the production was good, having good casting and, clearly paying for your casters, which is always, something you would expect from someone that's putting on a 20k event. If we ever did the same, we're paying anyone external that's coming into cast. I mean, we're never worried about taking money for our own event, but if we're getting people involved, we are paying them for that level of money, and we're sacrificing part of the prize pool, like regardless, because people put a lot of time in. I'm sure the admin team also got some got some money for that as well, and the observers, and it showed, that the observing and the production was good. They were obviously using software that, you don't really see, like vMix and things like that, which is obviously an expensive bit of software. They had the leaderboard and things like that, but I feel like they just took everything for granted that it was going to be really easy, and anyone that, kind of even offered help at times, they didn't accept it until it was too late. I mean, they obviously got Embo in the end, which was probably saved the event, if anything. I think Liz and Embo, I mean, I know they do a lot for us anyway, and we know how hard they work, but even not knowing them and knowing how hard they work, PCL would not have been... They saved a bit of face, really, for PCL, I think, in making sure that things ran properly.
Oh, yeah.
And, even
100%.
just talking, like, I mean, I messaged Twire and was trying to help them sort the leaderboard out, because I was like, this is a mess. And they didn't listen to any advice that we gave in terms of, the day number 1, everyone was in the wrong spots. It's like, okay, just contact Twire, tell them what spots people were in and do it. And rather than do that, they said, oh no, we'll just put everyone in the spots that Twire have got for day 2. It's like, well, that's not going to work, because you're going to have teams that are going to be mismatched and the leaderboard's going to be all over the place. The people were paying to try and qualify for a 20k event and didn't even know how many points they had going into the final day, like, which is just terrible. Like, no one should ever be worrying about that. You should know after every single game. And I know the API is a little bit slow, but you should be able to access that information as quick as possible. And yeah, I just think even just down to that, and then the communication between that and everything, just wasn't there.
No, and I mean, the thing is, you then go in the Discord to see what's going on, and Bing's not there. He's at TwitchCon. He's somewhere completely different.
Yeah.
It just blows my mind that I know the guys. He's obviously trusted these guys to run it from Hyperlux. Fair enough. He's obviously he knows them. Does that, but in the same spot, I'd never. If you weren't there to run an event, I wouldn't let anyone run it in the core Discord. Same as you, and that could be us being selfish, but we've got a way of doing things. Which Bing is known for this. This is the thing. He's known for doing things his way, getting results. Fair. Credit where it's due.
Yeah, I mean, he's done very, very well for the scene. But
then the biggest event they've had on either side, I don't understand. Firstly, why he put 20k on EU, if it's to build the scene, but it doesn't look like it is. Like, that's a rant for a different day. But I want to go back to what you said about the stream, because I honestly don't think the observing was that good. Because if you saw the chat, they didn't show the map, they didn't show.
Yeah, it was. I mean,
I know NA and EU are different, and I mean, if you look at the EU games, firstly, certainly at the start, people were playing conservative. There was so much money on the line. You saw it much more like the PC side, where people had obviously been doing their homework. They've been studying things. They've been looking at teams rotates, and we saw a lot of people up later than we did in CES. That's as expected. If you can win some money, and even then, they were focusing on teams looting and not covering the map and the things that you want to see, and you don't even sort of realize subconsciously probably how much you want to see the map when you're watching the stream. But I don't know if it's whether it was an NA thing or if it was an Apex thing. Because obviously Hyperlux do great Apex stuff, and obviously that game plays completely differently. You're not they don't view the map at all in comp, that side of things. But I know there's something to be said there as well. And it just. And, you can take this as me being salty, me being jealous, but why were we not consulted on this? Fair enough, they got Mark in to help. Shout out to him as well. Good stream in the end, really good casting.
I think him and Chunks did really well, yeah.
And I'm not saying get us in to do that, because obviously, we've worked with PCL before, had a bit of a sort of falling out, not really, but, I'd have happily just done that for free, just observe for free, easily. We know what we're doing. But you're getting these people who obviously haven't played PUBG, haven't done it before, doing that side of things. And, we've had, obviously, when we've worked with Being, you've got the observers coming over from PC to do console, and it is different. It plays out differently. It's not quite the same. It's harder to get used to. not harder, it's just different, obviously.
Yeah.
And it just seems mad. And all the way through the event, I was looking at saying, if we had that money, we could have got 3 times as many teams, probably. Done it completely differently. And maybe it's me just being jealous, but it just felt I
felt
like they didn't make the most of it.
Yeah, and now
that event's gone, we're probably not going to see that ever again.
No, and I think if you're PCL, right, they put a tweet out, I think Bing put a tweet out, when he was starting to do his, we've got this event coming, what does everyone want to see kind of thing.
Teasing it.
And he kind of put out a thing, it was like, what would people rather see? 2 10k events or one 20k event?
Yeah.
And a lot of people went for one 20k event, right? Which, for NA, I understand going for 20k event. You've had a 10k event. It was a very long-running 10k event. And so you're going, you know what? We don't want to have to do that again. Let's do a 20k event, which is going to be bigger and more spread out. Fine. Understand it. The other thing as well is people had in their mind that the last 10k event was really long. So they had no idea what the format was. They had no idea what was going to happen with this event. Also, they'd been promised a LAN, hadn't happened. They saw a chance of getting an event, and they thought, if we're going to have one event, because we can't guarantee there'll be 2, we're going to go for as much money as we can for one event. If they'd have said, we're running this event, it's going to be over 2 weekends, a qualifying weekend and a finals weekend, 15 games per day, or per stage. Would you rather have one 20k event of that or that twice for 10k each? And I'm pretty sure most people, I might be wrong in this, I might have it completely wrong, but I think most people would pick the 10k event. Because if you're a top team, you want to go for the bigger money because you think, you know what, I've got a good chance, I'm feeling really good at the moment as a team. We've got a good chance of winning. We want to have double the winnings. We don't want to risk having to do it twice. But if you're any team from 3rd or 4th, or maybe not even the top 5, downwards at all, even down to like 64th or whatever, wherever you rank yourself, you'd much rather have 2 events of 10k where there's a chance of winning some decent money still, even if you're in the top 8, because it was £600 for 8th or whatever, £300 for 8th place in an event, and having the chance of getting that twice for a middle of the pack team, and also having the chance of having a good weekend like Dig did for our event and coming away with a good bit of money. You're going to want to run that twice. You're going to want to have 2 chances at that, 2 chances of some decent money, because even for a 10k event, that's decent money. And I think they would have also had more teams involved in the second week that had a chance to use the first one. They could have done it as quick as they did and gone, okay, right, this is fix the problems. Even done 6k and 14k, make that second one bigger. But just show that, this is the event, it's going to happen, this is being done. Now we're doing phase 2. And then go, okay, we're going to have twice the number of teams. We're going to have a bigger qualifying, but we're not going to stream it. So we don't have to pay the observers. We don't have to do all of that. We're saving money that way. We're doing all of this stuff. In fact, they could have done that for both events. They could have said, okay, rather than stream both bits, we'll either not stream it at all, we'll get community casters in or whatever, and give them a little bit of money, but save all the money on the observing and the casting costs and put that onto 2 finals. So it's exactly the same amount of money. It's just, it's twice the amount of admin and twice the amount of that sort of side and organisation. But you've got a chance of having a massive second week event, which is surely you're using 10k for marketing and you're using 10k for a prize pool on the second week. Whereas they went 20k for marketing and a prize pool and did no marketing, and they only got, like, let's say if you're Hyperlux, right? They got 32 teams signed up. They got a lot more in NA, but we're just looking at EU because they put 20k into that as well. They're looking at getting 20k for EU. So they go, okay, right, we've put 20k in. We've got 32 teams signed up, right? And let's say there's 6 players, or they allowed 7, didn't they? But let's say an average of 6 per roster, right? That's not very many sign-ups they've got to their website at all for £20,000. You look at when we did the Vici Play event, we had a budget of £120, and we got them the same amount of sign-ups because we had. I think we guaranteed them.
What we needed.
We guaranteed them
120, I think.
Yeah, because we said each team having. Did we say each team having an average of 5 or 6 or something? And we said, we guaranteed the minimum of 4 or whatever. We had 32 teams anyway signed up, and a lot of them had 6 or 7 players on each one. So we had about 300 sign-ups, and that was our fault for not doing the kind of having a contract with them saying, if we hit that limit, then you guarantee us another event. We then didn't, we didn't get the fact that we doubled their sign-ups didn't get us anything extra, which is, a shame. But, looking at the level of money, they had a massive, great big deal. I mean, obviously it didn't really work because they're now bust and not existing anymore. But, we got them the same amount of sign-ups as what Hyperlux did. And they got it for, 1% of the fee without having to pay even less than that, because they didn't have to pay any observers, they didn't have to do any stream or anything like that. The stream was done on PCL as well, which I don't know how big the stream numbers went up, but I don't think the actual viewing figures were anything special compared to what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, and it's that which most of the players don't see. Like when you mentioned the Vici Play, we have quotas we have to hit. We've promised them we'll average a certain amount of views and we'll get so many clicks, so much engagement from socials to drive that they can use. That's what they're looking for. People it's not easy, and I know people know there's not money around, but it is so sponsors are so tight on what they want, of course, because they just do not throw money
for free
at these events. Yeah, and I remember the tweet when you said 2 10Ks or 1 20K, and I think I said then what I would do is, and I don't, of course we don't know what Hyperlux, what the parameters were, what they were looking for, what they want to get out of this going forward, whether they're going to build PUBG up. Same with PCL. Are they going to do more events next year? More. Are they back? Are they? Because it sort of seems like potentially that could be it. But I think I said to you, maybe do what I would want to do. If I had 20K, I'd want to do almost 3 throughout the year. Have a big finals at the end of the year, like a CCS, that sort of thing. Leading up to that, have 3 or 4.
It was like you said, smaller qualification kind of things, like the PCS,
like PGCs.
Yeah, PGC and PCS setup where you kind of get points based on how you do.
Yeah, I'd want to do it on points. So only these events count. So you could have 4 events with 2.5K each prize pool. So still a decent prize pool for teams. Anyone's allowed to compete. You've got to go through the qualification, of course, and you get those points. And at the end of the year, there's that event, and you could do that sort of points thing through the website potentially. You could say, we'll drive traffic to your website by doing this. It'll, drive engagement there. You could have the leaderboard, how teams are, how many points do they have over these events, and then finish with a big 10K or something at the end. Yeah,
I mean the thing is, right? If we had 20K and we didn't really worry, if we had 20K full stop, we would go, okay, we're going to stretch this out over a year because we don't know when we're going to get that sort of money again. Hyperlux, obviously, they had the money. They were happy.
You don't know what PUBG is going to look like in a year. That's the
exactly,
thing.
Yeah. And
you want to try and retain as many players as you can, don't you?
And I mean, Hyperlux were clearly happy just putting that on one weekend, or 2 weekends, which is fine. If they've got the money to do that and they want to do it, then great. I just think that they almost lost an opportunity there to have capitalized even more on our side of the scene and actually soften the blow a little bit, because what we've had is a 20K event that, as you said, the production, like I said, the production was great. They had all the tools to make it great. The observing needed work, but, you can't knock people that have never done it. The casting was on point. it was really good, and they really hyped up moments. But again, they struggled at times because you could tell they were wanting to see the map. And unlike PC, where you've got a map stream and you've got, your mainstream, they didn't have that. They literally were going off what we could see. Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, we could have said, look, have one observer on a map stream and give them a feed, because you can do that through Phoenix. Give them a stream, give them a feed of the map stream, and then they can cast off that. But they didn't have that. You can tell there were times when they were like, "Oh, I don't really know what's going on. That's happening somewhere on the map, but I don't know where that is. We're watching these people loot. Why are we watching these people loot? There were hot drops, and we were watching. I think there was one point we were watching Torch looting Minas when there was a hot drop with a Vita in Pachinki, Picado. And we were like, why are we watching this? Like, the thing is, they just didn't have the knowledge of the game, I don't think, either, to know where they had to be positioning. And they got some good shots. They got, they ran back some highlights and things like that, and it was great, and all that stuff was great. But I think they had so much potential to massively capitalize, and all they've done is they've done a subpar stream, which didn't hit the numbers probably expected, because I know what they're kind of expecting from past events. And that was not much better than what we've got in some of ours. Like, it was still a good number, but it was sort of between 200 and 300 max. And they've been hitting 400 in the past.
Yeah, they'll be...
So they won't be happy with
they'll be
those
looking
numbers.
at those numbers. But they won't be happy at all.
They won't be happy with them. So they've done a subpar stream.
Certainly as that was their sort of big event back.
Yeah.
You think that was the first event they've done in ages. And it wasn't as exciting as it could have been. And you can put that down to where the game is, but if you see that money, as we saw, teams will come back. Teams will want to play for that. You'll see teams come out the woodwork who are still there, like a Vita, like ATI, teams like that. I'm sure there was some in NA as well. I didn't really keep up with it, but yeah.
Yeah, I think, and then the whole payment thing's come about as well. And again, to be completely transparent with our payments, we got paid, I think it was 2-3 weeks ago, we got the QPAD money through, which was partly just because it was like, I had no doubt that we were getting
it from CCS2.
This is from CCS2.
Not CCS, so that's CCS2.
Yeah, that's CCS2. It takes time to get some of these sponsorship money sometimes, and I understand that it can take time, but again, it's the transparency thing of when we got the money through, we were like, okay, well, can we pay this out now? And we were fortunate that we were in a position where we had the money to be able to pay it out now without having to wait for that money. So that's why CCS2 was paid out a lot sooner, because we also had half the prize pool as well anyway in entry fee. But CES, we didn't have that. As soon as the games were over, raised a ticket with all the winners and said, look, we're expecting to get the money on this date. I will update you if it's going to be delayed, but this is when you can expect the money. And then we got the money. I think I said 2 days before it was going to be done. So then I had to, had a couple of questions after that because PCL were taking a while to pay. And I was like, I'm expecting to get it now. Kept checking with the sponsor. Yep, that's absolutely fine. The money's coming. Got the money in. Paid everyone out the next day. And it's like, people don't mind waiting if you just explain it.
If you're exactly.
If you're transparent with them, and even if you said, look, if it's going to take a while, Bing, obviously, when they did the last PCL, the 10K event, that obviously had a lot of controversy with, the payout being taking that long. It's like, if you know that you're getting the money from PUBG, and you know from the past that PUBG are very slow at paying, just tell people that. Just say in the event, okay, we've been able to get this backing from PUBG now, which means that the payout might take a little bit longer, but, as long as people know that going into the payout, then they won't mind. It's frustrating sitting on, waiting for a long period of time. But at the moment, the last update for PCL is paying out at the end of the month. So I'm not going to go, oh, they still haven't paid me yet. It's because they've told me the end of the month. So I'm not going to expect anything until then. But the thing is, they said you'll be paid within 3 days of the event finishing. Then it was, you'll be paid next week. Then it was, oh no, we've run into a snag because there's something to do with paying someone in Pakistan. Again, not being completely transparent. And then going, oh, actually, no, there's a problem with PayPal, so we've never had the money in the first place. And everyone's going, well, how did you pay someone in Pakistan? And they've said, oh, we're kind of like, oh, actually, have you got an Apex event? Or, are you paying that out? Oh, yeah, that's probably what it is. Almost like giving them a suggestion as to why it might be. Then it's going, oh, no, actually, there was a problem with the money. It's going to be the end of the month. And pretty much every single one of those updates has taken 2-3 days for it to come. So then, like, it's all reactive rather than proactive. And it's not giving people much hope in the fact that things are good. You know, there's been a lot of problems with money in the PUBG scene, as everyone knows.
Yeah.
You know, you've had blinds, you had, you know, I know, obviously Aphex has paid now, and that's fine, but there was a delay and there was a lot of, you know, miscommunication there as well, which kind of made everyone think,
yeah,
you know,
are we
something,
getting it? Are we not? Yeah.
Yeah, it made everyone think, oh, maybe something's going on there as well. But then to have PCL do it as well, who are meant to be a big name and not be transparent with money, you're just kind of like, well, is anyone ever going to trust anyone with money ever again? You know, I think, you know, the people I'd trust to run events and pay them, Zebo always paid out straight away. BGE have always paid out whenever you've put money into there. I know there's, you know, there's admin fees and stuff, but we're seeing that come back into the game. So, you know, you don't mind that. So yeah, BGE, NA in general. Dill, I think he's always been, you know, straight up in paying, and he's very quick at paying. Kolev was actually very efficient at paying as well. I think a few people, when he sort of came in, everyone was a bit like, oh, I'm not quite sure, because, you know, came in a bit of a whirlwind and was like, I'm going to start running these pays and doing all this, and then there was changing currency and stuff. But he was very transparent with everything. He said, you know, I had to change this event because everyone was paying the wrong way. You know, we got questioned, but I gave PayPal all the information they needed. They unfroze the account, but I just wanted to make sure we don't have an account that's already being watched. Fine. You know, he was transparent about that. But other than that, there's not many other people that I would kind of trust with my money now, because I just don't like people coming into the scene that are like, oh, I'm going to start running paid events. You know, I don't know if I want to give them my money, because I don't know if I'm going to see it again or see it even in winnings. You know, if you are going to be winning those events.
No, especially when you look at someone like Aphex, who was new to the scene. You know, came around April time and ran a couple of free leagues. I think he started doing those, didn't he? And then decided he'd go straight into the paid. It's those kind of people that you can't trust. And, you know, I'm not saying don't trust him, because he, you know, it was miscommunication. It was sorted out.
Yeah.
But if someone was to do that again, like take for example that Wolfie guy who was setting up Discords left, right, and centre. If he then decided to put on a paid, I can't imagine you'd see teams pay for that.
No, and I think, you know, that was evident from the fact he did put up a paid, and you know,
he got 32 sign-ups, to be fair.
Yeah, but I don't think any of them are real. But like, the thing with that, like, we've been talking longer than we did last time, and we said we overran on that one, so we will wrap it up. But I just kind of want to say about, you know, Wolfie and whatever. The issue there was that he was very defensive over everything. Any sort of bit of criticism or even advice going his way, it was very defensive.
It started off as advice. You could look at his Discord and say that you and I, along with some other people, were sort of leading the charge on trolling him. But this is after we'd been talking to him about how to run events, and not saying we know how, you know, not saying do it our way, but, you know, if you want someone to tell you how to run an event, I'd think most people would respect what we have to say if you're running EU events. Yeah,
and I mean, I don't ever want to come in and be like, oh, we're the best at doing this, because, you know, I don't necessarily, we're not the best at running events. You know, we've done very well with our PUBG events, but there are people better out there of a more experience at running those higher profile events. Like, we're still learning every event we do. But, you know, when it came to there, I mean, I think I kind of want to go into this more next episode, because we could talk about this for a little while. But in terms of, you know, the admin fee that he was putting on in terms of casting and things like that, I think paying casters is great. And that's not just coming from a caster, that's coming from someone that wants to see more casters, not me trying to get money. That's me trying to see other casters coming into the scene. And as we said for our event, there weren't any, because no one really wanted to do it. If you start paying casters, people are going to start doing it. And, you know, you will get some decent casters coming out of it. You know, we all started because we were passionate and wanted to do it for free. But that doesn't mean that if there's money on the line that people won't start trying it out and actually going, you know what, actually I really love this. I want to kind of get into this a bit more. I want to do it for other events. You know, we've seen a couple come and go recently. But the problem was he was charging money for casters when...
For an unknown product.
For an unknown product when he's never casted before. he'd never shown what his stream was like either. Like, there was no VODs, there was nothing. He refused to cast scrims. And he's like, well, just do a script, like practice doing it, because no one's going to pay for something where someone's learning how to do it. And what also frustrated me was the fact that every time someone mentioned it, he was like, oh, it's fine, it's easy. And it's like, okay, yes, it might be easy to get the game up, but you saw from PCL, you had 5 people there that were, not necessarily professional observers, but they've clearly observed Apex to a high level, and they couldn't do it because they didn't understand. Like, okay, Wolfie knows the game, but he doesn't know how to observe and how to give the best. Like, he doesn't know how to. He hasn't casted. He hasn't observed. He hasn't done any of that stuff. He's run some events, but hasn't really done any paid events before. It's all new stuff, and he's trying to do everything at once. Like, we did things in little, in various stages, which, not saying, again, that's the right way of doing it, but I think if you're charging someone for a product, it needs to be something that people are happy to pay for. But yeah, I think we should,
especially when you're taking 60 quid, because that is what he was charging on 30 quid. I can't remember if that was for one day. Especially when you're taking it out of the prize pool, when teams are moaning that there's not enough money in the game anyway to win, and then to take out that much for a caster fee, which I can't remember. I think going back to PGL was the last time we've seen casters really being paid for. Yeah,
and that's kind of what I want to touch on next time, so we won't go too much into it. But in terms of like admin fees and caster fees and stuff like that, I think it'd be a good little discussion to have next time. But I think, we've been talking for just under an hour now, so I think that's plenty of time, and I also have not eaten, so I'm going to get some food. But yeah, really enjoyed the episode again. I think it's been a lot of fun. Obviously, if if you're tuning in for the first time, then, thank you guys so much for listening for a full hour, because that must have been painful for you. But yeah, if you want to see anything discussed in future weeks, then please do, mention in the comments. We've got a section in our Discord as well. Link to the Discord is below as well in the comments too, or in the description. But yeah, do come in and chat with us, and we'll hopefully be able to discuss some of the topics that you guys are interested in.
Yeah, it was great to see actually a few people in Discord mentioned, what we've been talking about, because we saw some people like Sad and Mulan and a few others who, people from old PUBG who haven't seen in ages, from teams that, we thought were nowhere to be seen. So it's good to see people are enjoying it a little bit. But yeah, if you've got something you want to talk about or something you want us to sort of discuss, and, I still want to push for a live one. So maybe we'll do one like that, maybe like more of a Q&A. But yeah, I'm glad people are enjoying it. And yeah, of course, we're always looking for feedback as well. So if you something we can do differently, we were talking before, obviously the first one we felt was very, started off very formal and sort of went into it. I feel like we've been a little bit more casual this time.
Yeah, it's felt a lot more chatty.
About
I think that's kind of shown by the fact we've just been talking for an hour and we've literally covered one topic, I think, that we wanted to cover. Which is good, because that means we've got plenty of content for the future ones if we don't get many suggestions. So yeah, obviously, thanks guys so much for watching again. And yeah, we're going to try and do this as a weekly thing. Obviously, we said we'd try and do it bi-weekly, but it seems to be that we've got enough content, so we'll keep going. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching again, and do check out the previous episode if you haven't done that already, and of course hit subscribe, like, all that stuff. We're on YouTube now, so that's a new thing we've got to talk about. But yeah, thanks guys for watching, and we'll see you very soon.
We will. I'm going to go watch some POW. You go have some dinner. Catch up with you next week.
See you then.